Google Meet. I'm in Google Meet session, or in the Google Meet chat, and we will, we'll get to them as we can. So we're going to talk about race management primarily, as said. So I'm sharing my screen here. You should be able to see that. I will start by going to the race management icon on the left-hand side of the screen. Looks like a checkered flag. You can also go to race management on the bottom of the screen here in the dashboard. Either way, it brings you to this event, basically, or this screen. On the toggle on the upper left, you'll be able to see the next event chronologically in the order is what we default to, but you can navigate to previous events, navigate to future events, whatever you'd like to do, or however you need to do things that way. We'll start with the setup tab here. And this is basically where you're telling the program how you want it to handle the pill draw and how you want it to handle transponder options. For the pill draw, the default is an at check-in auto draw. Basically what that means is that as soon as you find a driver, it'll automatically give them a pill number at the same time. Fastest way to get through the check-in process. You can also have it auto draw before a driver selection or after you find a driver. Those are the auto draw options. There's also manual entry options if you want to manually do the pill as well. For transponder options, pretty straightforward here. Do you use transponders? If yes, do you allow rentals or not? Select what is usable there. You can set that for each class. You can save these changes as defaults. So theoretically, you really should only have to look at this, the first time you run that class, unless you're doing a major change. That way you can make it work the way you need it to every time. From there, I'll jump to the entry screen. Entries is where you can start putting drivers into an entry list. I used the 410 sprint car class earlier for today's session. Tonight, I'll be doing everything through the MRP stock cars. You can see that there's a toggle at the top of the screen to navigate one class to the other. But either way, this is where we're going to start adding entries. Multiple ways to find a driver. There's three. First, there's a competitors list on the left-hand side of the screen. This competitors tray, we call it, will allow you to see any driver who has raced with you before in that class or registered in that class. So you can go through this list. You can filter it at the top of the screen as well by number, so you can find your drivers that way. In addition, on the left-hand tray, there's also a pre-entries option here. If you have a single event registration tied to this event, any registrants will show in the pre-entries field as well. Second way to find a driver is the scan barcode option. If you have assigned your drivers MRP cards or they have their barcode in the app from claiming their profile, you can scan it with a barcode scanner to bypass the search process and enter that driver. Most efficient way to do it probably, but does require that hardware of a barcode scanner. Third way to find a driver is search. Works as a string of text. You can just start typing a name as we go, and it'll bring up search results for that person. Any driver who's ever raced at any track that uses My Race Pass will already have a driver profile. There really shouldn't be a whole lot of necessity to create new, unless you've got like a rookie driver or someone who, as I said, has never raced at a track that uses My Race Pass. In the search, you can see that there's a create new option here. If you need to create a new driver profile, first, last, hometown, and state will allow you to create a new one. But again, it shouldn't be that necessary. And if you do run across drivers with multiple profiles, if there's more than one profile for one driver, send that to me so that we can merge them together. You can send that to support@myracepass.com. So I'm going to add a driver to the entry list here, and you'll be able to see what this looks like. There's really four pieces of information that we need to put somebody to an entry list. First, the pill draw number. I have it set to the at check-in auto draw, so it automatically drew me a number 2. That box is grayed out. You can't edit that field. That is what the pill draw number is for that driver. Second thing here is car number, is what it sounds like, number on the side of the car. The program will not allow duplicate car numbers per class. So if I go in here with the number 23 and somebody else shows up and says they're number 23, you'd have to put an X or an initial or something like that behind it to make sure that there is no duplicate. Next option is car owner. If you're doing owner points, then every driver needs an owner listed. If you're not doing owner points, which most people don't do owner points anymore, then the only time owner will come into play is if someone other than the driver is getting paid that night. If somebody other than the driver is getting paid, you can use the search icon to bring up a list of all of the owners that driver has ever had. If they're not showing there, you can search our entire database of owners by clicking all owners and typing in the owner profile that you're looking for. Like, for instance, if I ever raced for Casey Kane, I could type Casey Kane Racing. There is the car owner. So those types of things are there. So that's pill draw, car number, car owner. Alternate payee is a really specific circumstance in which this is used, and that circumstance being if you're doing owner points, but the owner listed is also not the person getting paid. So if driver is listed and not getting paid, owner is listed and not getting paid, and there's a third-party payee, you can put that in there as alternate payee, and that way the check is printed to the correct person. Really rarely used feature, but when it is necessary, it's available there for you. The fourth and final thing that we need to put somebody to an entry list is the transponder number. If you click in this box, it'll give you a list of all the transponders that person has used previously, so you can click on the one that you need. If they're renting from you, mark the transponder rented box after you type in the transponder number, and that will give you a report at the end of the night that you can run that shows you everyone who rented a transponder from you. So again, pill, car number, owner information, transponder number. Once those things are set, the driver is ready to be entered. There's a couple of other things on this screen that I want to show you. First being lineup override. If lineup override is here, you can use this to have a driver start in the back, either for the heat races or for all races. So it will ignore whatever lineup procedure you picked in the lineup screen and put this driver at the back of the starting lineup for either for the heat races or for all races. There is no reason to make a competitor inactive unless you're putting in entries days in advance and you don't want them to show until race day. Otherwise, leave the active competitor checkbox checked. The only other thing that's in here that I'll show you is the suspension management options, right? This entrant has an active suspension. Monday during our season management session, we talked about suspension management. This is what it looks like when you have a driver who's suspended, right? You have to check the box to allow them to enter to be able to add them to the entry list. The last thing that I'll show you here is the confirmed memberships option. This will show you if they've registered or not with your tracker series. So those are some of the options here in the entry screen to add a driver. I'll go ahead and add, and we'll go ahead and add 10 drivers to this event just so we can have a 10-car race. But you can see when you use your defaults correctly for car number, car owner, and transponder number, this goes very quickly, especially when you're auto drawing the pill draw. Now you're just basically, when they show up to the back gate or the registration gate, you're just verifying the information that you've got in there is correct and going ahead and adding them to the entry list that way. So really allows tracks to become more efficient with their entries. And keep in mind that all of the entries in My Race Pass will import into your timing system, whether that be Westhold or Orbits. And so will the lineups as well. So there's no duplication of this process in your timing system. My Race Pass and Orbits and Westhold will talk to each other. So we've got 10 cars in our entry list. We will move ahead now to the Races tab. Races is where I can start setting my format for the night. So in this screen, you can copy from previous events if you know you're using the same format, or you can also add races from scratch here as well. So you can really put in whatever format you want, right? There's practice or hot laps, there's qualifying, there's dashes, there's heat races, there's features, whatever you want to do. I'm going to keep this really, really simple. I'm going to run a qualifying race, and then I'm going to run an A feature, and that's all I'm going to do here. You can put laps and then how many cars go to tech inspection after the race in this screen as well. One thing about qualifying that I'll tell you is I would advise you to not put a number in the laps field. What'll happen, pretty commonly, is people will put the number 2 there. just because, you think qualifying, everybody gets 2 laps, they'll put 2 there. What'll happen then in Orbits or Westhold is it'll automatically checkered flag that race after the first car, which is obviously not what you want. There's more cars to qualify. So leave that blank. That way the race doesn't automatically conclude in your timing system. Go ahead and add. And this is what comes up. A couple of things here. Again, you can rename the race. So if you want to call it time trials instead of qualifying, you want to call it a last chance race instead of a B main, you can do whatever you want there. You can also add race sponsors. Lincoln Electric time trials, Peterbilt to Sioux Falls, A main, whatever you want to do. And then the one other thing that I'll draw your attention to here is the transfers option. Oftentimes when people get to an A feature, they'll go to calculate lineups and the program will say, you don't have any cars in this race. And that's, usually their first, the first roadblock that they run into. Well, that's because of the transfers here. You have to tell the program how many cars from one race type go to the next race type. So for me, qualifying 1, this is simple. I'm going to send them all to the A feature. You could take the top 5 per heat to the A, everybody else to a B, however you want that to work, right? So you got to make sure that you set your transfers correctly. So now that I've got races in here, now that I've got entries in here, I'll jump to the lineups tab. So now for dirt tracks, the dirt track world that I'm in, the qualifying order matters immensely, right? The order that they go out on the racetrack. Typically that's handled by the random pill draw. That's why the pill draws is in there for dirt tracks for lineups. For a lot of asphalt tracks, though, the pill draw doesn't matter. The qualifying order doesn't matter. It's not governed by anything. My race pass still needs a lineup in order for the results to be put in later on. So even if the qualifying order is inconsequential, even if you're not going to follow whatever order you have published, we still need to have a qualifying order. So when I go to calculate lineups, I have it in here to always qualify based off the pill draw. But there are many options here, right? You can do based off of practice or hot lap time, based off of the last name, based off the point standings, whatever you want to do, whatever's right for your facility, whether you're going to follow the order or not. You can even do it random. So I'll just put it in here as random and calculate. So we have to have a qualifying order in order to have qualifying results. It's one quirk of the system, even if your qualifying order doesn't matter. So before we go too much further here, I want to talk about the tools options that we've got up in the upper right-hand corner. One of the tools that we've got is a lineup monitor option. A lot of racetracks will have lineups posted in a centralized location, whether that's be stapling paper lineups to a tag board or writing them on a whiteboard or chalkboard or whatever. People post lineups. Now, in my race pass, obviously all your lineups will be in the app, but you can also utilize this lineup monitor to have a screen showing the lineups throughout the course of the event, right? So you can have this up and running, connect to the internet, sign into a computer, HDMI to a TV, or mirror it or whatever. And then this screen will automatically refresh every 30 seconds. So every time you create new lineups, it'll appear on here automatically. Every time a race is completed and saved as completed in the results tab, the lineup will disappear off of the screen. So you can set this up at the beginning of the night, have it run all night, and that's one person's job that you can now redistribute to having them do other things, right? You've saved someone from having to post lineups all night in that centralized location because you have this screen up and running. It might save you an employee, or it might allow that employee to do other more important things for you on the race night. So something to keep in mind. From here, though, we want to be able to get all of these entries and these lineups into Orbits. So let me open up Orbits. We'll come back with Race Manager when I do the feature here, but I'll start with Orbits. I'll open that up. In Orbits, you can see I've got a new event, nothing in here. In Orbits, there's a distribution tab. In that distribution tab, there is an IP address and a port number. What we're going to do is we're going to use a program called the MRP Live to connect my Race Pass and Orbits. So in MRP Live tab in my Race Pass, there is a download application link here. Download and install MRP Live on the same machine that Orbits is on. So here's MRP Live. You can see I've got port number or IP address and port number listed here. Port number is basically always 50,000. That doesn't change. So the only thing that'll change on a race-to-race basis for you is the connection code. If you click launch from web, by the way, it'll open up MRP Live with the connection code already built in. But copy this connection code, paste it into MRP Live, and connect. And now I'm connected to Orbitz. So all I have to do at this point is get lineups. And now all of my class data and all of my lineup data will be pushed into Orbitz. So when I go to Orbitz and I go to registration, this is still a blank event. There's nothing here, right? All I have to do is import it. I don't have to create all of the competitors and put them in the database and curate that. I just have to import. A browse, import the groups. That's the class data, right? So I had a 410 sprint car class here. I had an MRP stock car class here. You can see all the numbers, names, class information, transponders, they all come over. Now that the groups are here, all I have to do is import the lineups. That's called runs in Orbitz. So now that I've got lineups, I imported my qualifying lineup. I'm ready to time this race. I don't have to curate the database here. I can just import it from my race pass. So I will open Orbitz Crack Simulator here. I will time qualifying race number 1 using their fake racetrack to have the best fake race of all time. While that fake race is running, I'll show you one other tool from my race pass. Up in the top of the screen, next to tools, there's an MRP Live option with a lap viewer. The same screen is here in the MRP Live tab, but I like the lap viewer. I like to show this because, I'm an announcer, and this is good information for announcers to have. It's the same live timing views that exist in the app, but they exist in a desktop here. So here we'll be able to see the running order, the best lap time. Because I'm in a race called qualifying, it defaults to the best lap view. But you'll be able to also see in a regular race the positions gained, the average lap time, the lap leaders, all of these types of things. And actually an average lap time, you can see an average over the last 3 laps as well. So, there's a lot of really valuable pieces of information in the lap viewer. Encourage you to put this in front of your announcers so they can sound better and smarter on the broadcast when talking about your facility and the drivers who are racing. So that's that. I'll go back to Orbitz, stop that, and then checkered flag and stop the race here. Nothing about Orbitz will change for you. Everything will be the same here. So I've got that stopped. Now when I come back to my race pass, when I go to the results tab, I can import. You can see qualifying 1 exists up here. I can import qualifying 1. There are my results, ready to rock and roll. This is also where you can mark your DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag. You can see all the times are imported here as well. I can drag and drop here also. If, I know that a transponder fell off, but he actually finished 5th or whatever, I can make that happen as well. Resave. We're good to go there. All of that's done. And when I come to the lineup monitor, there's nothing showing here because that was saved as completed. I don't have any other lineups created. So let's create lineups. I'm done with qualifying. Now it's time for my A feature event. I can line it up a number of different ways, just like heat races. I can line up a number of different ways. But let's keep this simple. A feature from qualifying and calculate. From here, I can utilize lineup options to do an invert. If I want to invert a certain number of cars, I can do that. I can do a redraw. If I'm going to redraw the top starting positions, how many competitors do you want to redraw? I can do that as well. I'll redraw them here. There we go. I did my redraw. There we are. Now that I've got a lineup saved, I can come back to the lineup monitor. Lo and behold, there we are. A feature 1, lineup monitor is being displayed. So this automatically refreshes all night long for you. Let me disconnect completely from Orbitz so we can open this in Race Manager. And I can show you what the connection and import process looks like in Race Manager. Largely is going to be the same. I'm going to, let me open that. Race Manager is here. Here is Race Manager. When I open MRP Live next to it, it's the same IP address. It's in a different spot, but the IP address is here. Port number is here. It's 50,000. It's always 50,000. That doesn't change. So really, we're just getting the same pieces of information from a different spot in Race Manager. The connection code will still be dependent on the event that you're running in My Race Pass. Let me get rid of the data that I did from a previous session here. So I'm starting with a blank race, starting with everything blank again. Again, verify IP address and connection code, connect here. And once I'm connected, I can do the same thing. I'll press get lineups. And when I come to a race manager, there are my competitors lists for each. And here is my A feature 1 lineup that I just created, ready to be timed. So it's even more seamless in Race Manager, to be honest. It's very simple. So let me start A feature 1. Again, if I go to the lineup monitor, or excuse me, if I go to the live timing screen, I haven't completed a lap yet. Now I'm starting to complete laps, but it looks and works and does the same things. As soon as I checker flag this race, that will be gone. But that's all working as intended. When I go to Race Manager, I will get them one more lap in, and then I'll stop. Checkered flag and stop the race. Nothing about your Race Manager experience will change. So now when I come to the results tab of my race pass, there's my MRP stock cars A feature race ready to be imported. There's my import. I can DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag if I need to. Save is completed. I find out later on that he didn't make weight at the scales. I can mark DQ. I can save as completed. You can manually adjust this as needed. Now, in lineup monitor, because this has gone checkered, that race is gone. All of those things, are automated. And that's basically a race night. What you're going to find is the entries process is the most important process. We have to find the right driver, give them the right car number with the right transponder number in order for this all to work after that. But once you have those things put in place, then you're just calculating lineups, pushing them to live timing system, bringing the results back over and over and over again. It's fairly simple and straightforward at that point. The last step to this is the points and pay tab. I want to calculate points and payouts. One of the things that you can do in advance to prepare for race night is up in the settings area, there are points and pay schemes. You can create schemes that you can use for your points, championship point structure, or for your purse payouts. Either way, creating those schemes exists here. So I've got a bunch of schemes created. You can create schemes that are, unique to your racing facility. But either way, when I go to add a points and pay group at the end, I'm just choosing the schemes that I've created in advance that I want to apply to that class on that race night. So we'll say, tonight's a USRA points scheme night. And what is this? A stock car class? I don't know if I have a stock car scheme called that. I'll just call these late models. I'll choose my late model scheme, and there we go. You can then choose one or multiple schedules to apply the points to for your various point standings that you've got. You can then choose one or multiple groups to apply the points to, whether that be competitors only or owners or both or whatever you want to do there. The next options I'll show you here are the points eligibilities. We had talked about this when we talked about registrations, but this is where you can enforce license check based off the registration, right? So if I apply points only to licensed or temporarily licensed drivers, only folks who have registered will receive points. Same thing with payouts. If I do pay eligibility, you can do it to licensed drivers there as well. Either way, I'm going to just apply it to everybody. I'm going to add. And now my points and pay are calculated. In the My Race Pass app, within the next 20 minutes, your points will be updated. If you have a website through My Race Pass, within 20 minutes, your website will be updated. So those things are valuable for that reason. Everything's a network here. You can, if needed, make manual adjustments to these. You can see I DQ'd this driver, so he didn't receive any points or payout. But if I wanted to change my mind and give him, show up points of 50 points, or, give him $100 for tow money, even though he was DQ'd, you can still make those manual adjustments for those types of situations. But as long as your scheme is correct, this should be, pretty straightforward. The last step then is the create payments button that will push all of the payout data to our 1099 report so that at the end of the year, you can monitor how much money every payee has made for tax purposes. And then from this screen, after you create payments, you can print checks from here. So if I hit create checks, put in the starting check number, put in the check layout that you've got, and then you can, change the printing order by car number or last name or whatever you want it to be, and create. And now here are my checks ready to be printed, ready to come out of the printer. Sign the checks, hand them to the drivers, make your life more simple that way. You can also print a couple of things from the next tab. One is mailing labels. If you've got the driver addresses on file, you can print mailing labels. So if you're, do payouts the week following the race as opposed to on race night, you can then mail them out more easily. You can also print a report that I use on race night for drivers signing for their checks. It gives the check number, the amount listed, and then white space for them to sign. So if the payee is a car owner, the driver's name is in parentheses, but either way, white space for them to sign. This way you know more clearly who has claimed their pay and who has not, and you can start to monitor that a little bit more closely as well. You can also export all of this information to QuickBooks with the QuickBooks export icon. If you use that to track your financials, it puts out a .iif file, which can be uploaded into QuickBooks for you pretty seamlessly. And then, I guess, you can shut the lights off and go home. That's a race night. The race management features of My Race Pass are the foundation of what we do, right? We only have all of the data to put into the app because scorers are using race management in My Race Pass. We only have all of the data to extrapolate to websites because you're putting in schedules, running your race, and calculating points through My Race Pass. This is the foundational piece, is race management. So we want to make sure that, you're as comfortable as possible with the features of race management before we get to race day. It's really all I have to show here. If you do have questions, put them in the chat and Google Meet. You can add a comment on our Facebook page if you're watching on Facebook Live. We will circle back and answer your questions. Absolutely. You can also email support@myracepass.com at any point. We're always available to answer questions for you. You can call us as well. And then there's a help center. We have curated all of these various things into individual help pages in our help center. It's mrphelp.com. There's videos attached to many of the articles also. And you can get help on connecting to live timing, to everything in race man, everything in the program. Everything in the program has an article in the help center. So I encourage you to curate that as well. But outside of that, appreciate your time, taking time out of your evening to sit through one of these. If you have questions, please reach out to us. This recording will be available tomorrow as well. So you can circle back and watch the recording. Dave, I'm going to stop the recording here. Stick around for a minute and we'll go through it again together. But until then, I appreciate your time, everybody.